Okay. Jim, can you hear us on the?
I can. Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear us okay out in the audience? Is that working all right? Good, good. Well, welcome everybody. It's starting to look like a family reunion out here. So a lot of hellos. Welcome. This is the Boundary Commission. An annexation protest has been forwarded to us, and we'll go over what we're able to do and what we're not able to do in a few minutes. We have some housekeeping to start with first, and that is to make sure we have a quorum and to let everybody in the audience know exactly who's up here. And it'll also be in the minutes this way. So, Jim, Jim is on the Boundary Commission, but he was not able to be here, so he's going to be remoting in. That was an option for everyone. So, Jim, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to begin with.
I'm Jim Miller, Mayor of Saratoga Springs. Been on the Boundary Commission for about 8 years. Haven't had so many in a row as we have now. So glad to be here tonight, and thanks for making the electronic option available.
Thanks, Jim. We'll start on the audience's left, which would be our right, and just go that way.
I'm Andrea Allen, and I've just been on the Boundary Commission starting this year.
My name is Paul Raymond. I'm on the Boundary Commission. I've been on it for about 1.5 years. I work for Camp Williams. I do compatibility uses and encroachment with developers around Camp Williams. So that's my main job.
I'm Alan Shepard. I've been on the commission for, I think, close to 2 years. I live out in the rural area of Lake Shore.
I'm Kirk Hunsaker. I'm the mayor of Santaquin, and I've been on the Boundary Commission for, I don't know, a couple of years, I think. So
Has been. I'm Chris Paulson. I'm the Utah County Assessor. By statute, there has to be 2 members of the committee or the Boundary Commission from the county. And so I fill that second seat. We do have a quorum. We are missing one person. Bill Fairbanks was unable to be with us today, but that is the only Boundary Commission member who's not here right now. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with the agenda. We have a house cleaning item first before we get into the annexation. So agenda item number 1 is to approve or reject the minutes from the August 23rd Boundary Commission meeting. Is there
a motion to approve the minutes from our last Boundary Commission meeting?
I second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And so it is unanimous. That passes. All right, now we can get into why everybody's here. Let me give you a brief background as to what the Boundary Commission is. The Boundary Commission was set up by the legislature when there is a protest for an annexation. As the name implies, it has to do with the boundaries. There's a lot of things that happen with annexations, zonings, and many other aspects, but the legislation has only allowed us to consider 4 items. And I'm going to turn some time over to our attorney, and he is going to briefly go over what those 4 items are that the Boundary Commission has the ability to determine or rule on. The reason for this is the legislature set us up as a quasi-judicial entity. It's not like your typical city council or county commission. We can only do what the legislature allows us to do. And they have identified 4 items that we can actually rule on. As in any quasi or any judicial branch, it can be appealed, and the way to appeal it is to go to the 4th District Court. So that is why we're actually held to the specific items that the legislature has set up for us. So I'm going to turn the time over now to our county attorney.
Thank you, Commission Chair Polson. My name is Robert Moore. I'm with Utah County Attorney's Office. Let me just identify a couple of things as mentioned here. The Boundary Commission is set up by statute, Utah State Code, and in that statute, so it's not county law, it's state law, and in that statute, it does define what the Boundary Commission does and what they can do and what they can't do. It also defines as to who can appeal a decision of a city or on an annexation, or who can protest. And let me just mention to you about that, because that may be relevant this evening. Those that can protest a annexation into a city is set by state law, and that is either a legislative body or a governing body of a city or a county. That's one of the entities that can protest, or an owner of real property. And what that is a defined term by state law. And what that means is that the property of the person who is protesting has to be in a zone that's primarily for manufacturing, commercial, or agricultural purposes. And 2, that does not include residential units with a greater density than 1 unit per acre. So in other words, the people that protest annexations have to have at least 1 acre, and also that they own, and also that you can't have more than 1 house on that 1 acre. The issue that you may discover this evening, and if you could put that map up on there. The map here, as you probably recognize, is Spring Lake proper. And the yellow in that map is the RR5 county designation for our zoning purposes. That is the county's residential zone. So anyone who lives within that yellow on that map cannot, by state law, protest the annexation of this springs at Spring Lake into Payson City. So if you're in the green, which is the RA5 zone, then that is our agricultural zone. That's one of our agricultural zones in the county. But if you're in the yellow, that is not, and that would not meet the definition. So if you're here and you're here to protest and your home is in the yellow, you would be disqualified from protesting this annexation. Doesn't mean you can still speak, and he'll allow you to speak to this, but just be aware of that as we go forward. Now, again, that's not the county's law here. That's the state law that the Boundary Commission is bound by. So, as mentioned, for protests, we're here for a public hearing this evening, and this public hearing, we are here to decide, or the Boundary Commission is here to decide whether that the protest is proper. What they're looking for, as mentioned, and the Boundary Commission can do a few things. They can, after tonight's hearing, they can continue it, and they can continue it for up to 60 days. After tonight's hearing, they could make a decision. If they decide to make a decision tonight, then they have to issue a written decision within 30 days of when they decide to make a decision. As mentioned by the chairman, the Boundary Commission is quasi-judicial, meaning that they're acting like a court, and they can make their decision in private if they decide to. They can, as part of their decision, approve the annexation, either with or without conditions. They can make minor modifications to the annexation and approve it with or without conditions. Or number 3, they can disapprove the proposed annexation. And until the Boundary Commission acts, the city cannot respond or move forward on the annexation. And as mentioned, within 30 days of the decision of the Boundary Commission, they have to have it in writing. And then it's sent out to appropriate parties. And then from that point, there is a period of time of 20 days that any person that qualifies can then appeal that to the 4th District Court. Now, as mentioned, lastly, what are the items that the Boundary Commission is considering this evening? Here are the things that, by state law, that the Boundary Commission can only consider and nothing else. Number one, whether it complies with the requirements of Utah Code Section 10-2-402, and I'll explain what that is in a second, and 10-2-403, and the annexation policy plan of the proposed annexing municipality. Number two, whether it conflicts, the proposed annexation conflicts with the annexation policy plan of another municipality or another city. And three, if the proposed annexation includes urban development, will it have an adverse tax consequence on the remaining unincorporated area of the county? So going back to the first one, and these are the only items that the Boundary Commission can consider, whether it complies with the requirements of 10-2-402. What those requirements are is whether the annexation itself is a contiguous area, number one. Number two, whether that annexation itself is contiguous to a municipality or to a city. Number three, will the annexation leave or create an unincorporated island or unincorporated peninsula? And finally, number four, whether the area being annexed is within the proposing annexing municipalities expansion area. In other words, Payson City's expansion area. And 10-2-403, as mentioned, is what that is that's the due process requirements. Whether a petition was filed with Payson City, whether notice was given, and how we got here tonight. So that is what the Boundary Commission can consider as they're here tonight. So as you're talking, you may want to address those very issues, because those are what are germane to the discussion this evening. Because again, the Boundary Commission is limited to those things by state law.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. There was a request for a presentation, I believe. Do you remember who that was, Alice? Was it from the developer, or to begin with?
I had heard that Rob McNeil wanted to make a presentation. Was that?
Is Rob McNeil here? I'm not. Oh,
Yes, I'm the applicant,
all right.
and I had just asked Alice Black if it was okay to do slides. Yeah, and she said yeah.
Okay.
And so it was a question whether there was going to be slides or, what was involved in the presentation.
All right. I just wanted to, because that request is made, we've had that happen quite often. It's not an issue. So, okay. All right.
So, Mr. Chair, I would recommend that you open the public hearing tonight and then call the items as you desire.
So we will begin by opening this public comment hearing. And we're going to begin with item number 2. Now, there's a lot of the petitions that were signed by multiple people. If you don't remember which one you're on, that's okay. We're going to open it up for public comment. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to talk. So what I have here is each agenda item has the first name that was listed on the petition. So we'll go through it, naming off that first name. If you want to talk to that petition, that's fine. If you don't know if you're on that petition, that's fine too. Because at the end of it, we will have a public comment where anyone can request or ask anything they want at that point, or make public comment. So we're going to start off with number 2. It says, consider Stephen K. Brannon's protest for the proposed Spring Lake annexation. Are Steve and Kay here?
No, but they want me to take.
Oh, please come up. Come on up.
Yeah, on that. Is there a cop in here in case I get thrown out?
If you don't mind, state your name,
Kelly
please.
Warner. I went to school with this man.
Okay.
That's
Sorry.
scary for both.
I know it.
And because there is this, Kelly, can you Can you just kind of tell it?
Could
we don't
you,
have the
do you
map up
have
here
a
in our-
proposed map?
We have a map that
You
was
turn on the map.
up earlier. There we go.
Is this the proposed? Or what I want
me-
to see?
Let me show you everyone here. This right here is the proposed.
Okay. So what you've stated is none of that, we can't oppose, none of us that live in that can oppose this, right?
The issue is because of the zoning,
Yes.
that you would not have standing in the protest. So you're correct. It would.
So this whole meeting's for nothing then? Because we all live in that. So we can't protest is what I'm just
No,
trying to get
I
straight
know
of
you're not
this.
being confrontational.
No,
I'm
no,
fine with
I
it.
come across that way because I'm a hothead, but hell, oh well. No, I'm just wondering for sure what
No, it's a great
my
question.
understanding.
Yeah, it's a great question because we need to clarify this.
Yes,
Yes. By state statute, it states that if the property that you own is manufacturing, commercial, or agricultural, and it has to be in the zoning that way. The
or if I
county,
grow marijuana, we're cool.
not completely.
Okay,
You may
but-
be cool, but not completely.
Then we're agricultural though.
You are agricultural.
Okay,
But there's a component here. The
Yeah.
zoning in the yellow up here is actually zoned residential.
yes,
And I think everyone here knows that the typical zoning in the county is 5 acres.
yes,
However, because of this residential zoning that is occurring here in the Spring Lake area, it's got the zoning down to 1 acre.
okay,
Because of that, the zoning says this is actually residential. It is not agricultural, commercial, or manufacturing. And so by code, if you don't own one of those types, then you do not have standing in the appeal. Does that make sense?
yes, it does, and I see probably 90% here that you're saying has no standing in that appeal. Maybe 3 people here have it, but it's affecting all of us.
Yes.
But
And we would love to hear from all of you. I don't have a problem with that.
Oh, you will by the end of the night, I
Yeah.
guarantee you. Or, you know,
But in order to have standing in the appeal,
yes,
if we considered everyone in this zone,
okay,
it would be a simple appeal to district court to just nullify our decision.
okay. Well, I know Steve has, I think, total of 4 acres. And he's right on the edge. Siemens Properties, the upper part, the corner, and we don't want it.
Okay.
That's going to add so much traffic to our area that I know the dude's got to make some money, you know, sell marijuana or whatever. I don't care. But we don't want it for the traffic. And our
No.
kids, it's a community. Do you live in a community or are you one of these millennia? I don't know. I'm just asking.
I'll be honest with you. I live in Payson,
Well,
so
but you're,
I'm familiar with Spring
know
Lake
our-
because we travel through there quite often.
All
and,
right.
Yeah. So
but that's what our problem is. I know he's there to make million homes and get out. We've got to live there. And I don't know how close you guys are, but I don't know what kind of housing. That's what I wanted to see is a developmental map.
I will say
Have
this.
that.
I will say this. A lot of the concerns that were written in the
Yes.
in the protests, a lot of them had to do with zoning,
Yes.
density, traffic, all those things.
Yes, that's our main concern.
The city has not approved this annexation. And so it is open to all of you still because the city has not approved anything with this annexation yet. And when you talk about zoning, density, all of those things, that's really the city's call because that
Then-
is something that can be talked about and discussed in those meetings during the annexation process, which has not been finalized yet.
Well, don't you guys have the power to deny the annex or is this all city?
No.
Then what's this whole meeting about then?
This
I know
meeting-
I'm stupid, but
No,
hey,
no, you're fine. It's a great question.
questions.
Very good question. The reason that we exist is because state statute requires certain things to happen in order to be annexed. And there's a process. And if a developer or the city or anyone deviates from that process, then it is our responsibility to overturn it.
so this is basically just the first step. So
We-
nothing will get done tonight except us, our tempers. I'm serious.
No, I know you
I'm
are.
not trying to joke here.
I don't want to
So-
give you any false hope here.
Well, I know, but this is not, nothing's going to change this process. Just, this is a step you guys got to take, right?
This is a step because it was protested, but we're actually called the Boundary Commission
Okay.
because all we can consider is boundaries.
Okay, so nothing we're going to say or do will affect this annexation. Is that what I'm
If you-
what I'm hearing?
If you want to talk about housing density and all of those types of things,
Does somebody have a map?
it doesn't have an impact on this.
Okay, so that's about it because I understand nothing
Yeah,
our community
wanna make
says
sure-
tonight's going to
Yeah,
change
I want to
anything,
make sure
right?
that everybody understands by statute, we can only rule on the 4 things that the attorney
Thank you.
stated. So,
There it is.
welcome.
I'm Greg Calloway. Lived in Spring Lake my whole life. Hate to see it growing, know it's coming. You mentioned that you have to be agriculture, so many acres to protest.
It has to be an agricultural designation,
A designation,
Zone.
like zoning.
okay? And then you also said that that's all 1 acre lots. Am I correct?
Well, no, the zoning on it requires at least 1 acre. It can be bigger. But it's in,
But I can go
it's in a-
subdivide my property to 1 acres now? Because it's always
it's
been
in
5 1/4.
it's in a 1 acre zone. Now, there are other
It's not
parts.
a 1 acre zone. You go try to do a 1 acre, I got 14 acres right there. I cannot build another house on it. I can build, yeah, I can do 1. I can't do 2 because I need 5 1/4. But now I come to this meeting and you guys are saying an acre lot?
I think if you have, this is Rob Moore again. I think if you have questions about your property and what you can build and can't build, that's not before the Boundary Commission.
No, what I'm saying is, I'm not so sure you guys know what you're talking about if you're gonna do that.
Well, some of those lots up there are smaller than 5 acres and are
On
R5
Spr-
zones.
Yeah, on Spring Lake Road, any of the outlying areas is not.
So
My other
the
question
issue is in the RR5 zone, the county has determined as a zone, that is a residential zone. And by state law, in order to protest an annexation, you have to be a real property owner. And that is a defined term in state law. And it has to be that you are zoned, your property is zoned, commercial, manufacturing, or agricultural. The county has previously determined that the RR5 zone, which most of Spring Lake's in, the yellow up on the map, is a residential zone. So that does not qualify. We're just telling you that here, just so that you understand that the state law governs what we do here tonight, and the RR5 zone is a residential zone and would not qualify for a person to protest to an annexation.
Okay. So,
And that's just before this body. I mean, it has nothing to do with any protest going to the city.
it's just like Kelly said, everybody that lives there can't protest.
Everyone that's in the yellow, that's correct.
That's all of us.
Yes, yes.
So anyone actually impacted by the decision has no vote.
Because
Exactly.
of,
Who's the closest person that does have a say in it?
well, let
your
me
map
let me
there.
see a raise of hands of anyone that doesn't live in the yellow area.
Nobody lives in the little blue area.
I don't even know where that little blue
Yeah.
area is located,
green
up on the
areas.
mountain someplace?
The green area.
How come everything's yellow except that little blue area? Who made it that that's not equal to
Let's, come on up. Come on up. Yeah, please come up.
You're on your own.
Stay there. Stay there.
I'm not controversial. Yeah, these are all nice guys, but I just don't understand.
You need to state your name first,
Two things
ma'am.
I don't
Ma'am,
understand.
ma'am,
You
please,
s-
ma'am, please state your name
Joy
first.
Benson.
Thank
okay?
you.
You said that the little blue area at the top is the only place where people live who can really
Oh,
make it.
I'm sorry.
That's what you said, and that's
I'm sorry if
confusing.
I must have misstated.
Okay.
The little blue area on the top, that square that's at the very top,
Yeah.
that's what's being annexed into Payson.
Okay. But it is still a yellow zone 1 acre thing.
Right, it's currently in a yellow zone,
Okay.
and it's being annexed. It's proposed to be annexed into Payson.
Okay. And is it, next question, there used to be a rule, and when I used to serve on the city's stuff, that you couldn't cherry stem. Is that not kind of called cherry stemming? I thought you had to make
Good question.
straight boundaries.
Good question. One of the things that we have to decide tonight is there a peninsula or an island? And I think this cherry stemming that you're talking about is what it's referred to as a peninsula. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It only applies on the unincorporated side, not the incorporated side. So Payson City, it doesn't apply to, but they can't create a cherry stem like you're talking about into the unincorporated. We had the county surveyor take a look at this, and he said that it does not. So that it is fine
okay.
because it doesn't create that cherry stem that you're talking about.
And,
What is the red line for? I never understood that.
and then what does the little red part mean
It is
on the
right
map?
here.
The red?
It is.
The red is actually zoned commercial. I was not aware that there was any
Oh.
commercial. I knew there used to be the mechanic shop and other things down there, but that is actually zoned commercial
So the
in
little
Salem.
red house on the hill is commercial. I mean, the old school house?
Come in, loves.
Oh, okay.
This is
All right.
Highway 198.
Now, here's my
right
third
here.
question
This is
that I
a
don't
freeway, so
understand.
that's in between.
So all of this used to be 5.25 acres. When did it become
This is the
1
city right
acre?
here.
What,
The
where
pond
did
is right here.
we all miss that? Somewhere we all missed
This is the high-
something.
this is the
When
Highline
did it
Canal
become 1
right here.
acre?
I know that currently the zoning is down to 1 acre, but I couldn't tell you exactly when that happened.
The zoning's RR5, and so you'd want to check with community development. This is Rob Moore again, County Attorney's Office. This board does not run the zoning
Right,
of the
okay.
county. And so all they know is that it's zone RR5, which is again the county's residential zone. And so it's been RR5 for a while, but I couldn't tell you here tonight how long it's been that.
Okay, and so again, this isn't your question, but there's no rule or law that says when there's a zoning change, the people within that zone should be notified, or?
I believe community development, again, they're the ones that control zoning, and I believe there is a notification part of that.
That's a legislative process. That's different than what we're dealing with tonight. You're right. If there is a zone change to this property, if this yellow were to come to the light green that's on the side, you see that? That's RA5.
Over there, yeah?
If they were to change all the yellow to RA5, they would have to give you notice. There'd be a public hearing. It would go to the Planning Commission and the County Commission, and then the County Commission would make a final decision on that, because that's a legislative decision on the zoning that occurs. We're not talking about that tonight, though.
Okay.
So
I just
that's-
want to understand why none of us knew that we're in a 1
You-
acres.
You're in a residential zone and the RR5 zone, and you would want to contact community development or look online and you can see what the requirements are, the RR5 zone are, and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So back to what Kelly said. Then all of us that live in
Sorry,
the
your name
yellow
again,
section-
sir, real quick, just so.
I'm sorry.
Trying to keep
Yeah.
the record straight.
Greg Calloway.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, so back to what Kelly said. Everybody that lives there has no say in it and can't really protest.
Only before the Boundary Commission.
So our next
I mean,
step
there
is city
still is
council?
avenues for protest, but because of that, it wouldn't be standing in the Boundary Commission.
So the next step would be city council.
It would be the city council, which has not approved this yet. So there is still time for that.
That clarifies a lot of stuff. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Craig. I'm going to move on to the next name because we need to step through each one of these. Jean Carley. Is Jean Carley here?
I'm a property owner, and I'm adjacent to the.
I'm sorry, Jean, can you just state your name for the record?
Jean Carley.
There you go. Thank you.
I own 2.2 acres next to the proposed development. I came to this meeting basically with the feeling that this is cut and dried, and there's not much to really protest with you folks. I think I pretty well understand what after having read the law and so forth. So that's cut and dried. My feeling is that really the city council is the one that we all need to voice our concerns and ask for redress at that level. So that's all I've got to say.
Thanks, Gene. We're going to go on to number 4, Ronald and Sharon Hurst. Are they here?
Oh, Ron, didn't even see him. No, but he used to be an electrician for us. Good to see him still around.
My name's Ron Hurst, and I've lived in Spring Lake for 35 years. And you're telling me that I don't own property out there. I only got 1/3 of an acre.
No, I'm not saying that you don't.
Well,
I'm just saying that if
you
you
tell
live in
me I
the,
don't have a vote, I don't have enough ground.
I'm just saying that if you live in the zone that's yellow up here, that it doesn't qualify for the petition. That's all.
Then why do I pay taxes every year on it?
This is only to have standing before the Boundary Commission.
Well, since that subdivision moved in up there, the traffic has doubled in front of our house, and foot traffic and everything else. And something's got to happen. And I know you people are, what you say, you can't do nothing. So the city council's where we got to go.
The Boundary Commission, if you want to talk about traffic, the Boundary Commission really has no standing in traffic.
The roads ain't built to handle a lot of traffic.
But the Boundary Commission cannot rule on traffic. Does that make sense? Because if we ruled on traffic, it would just be appealed to district court and overturned because we don't have the authority to rule on traffic.
I don't know, it don't make all the sense to me. That we pay taxes, but you say we don't have a voice in it?
I'm just saying before this body, we don't control traffic. So if you'd like to talk about traffic, we have no say in traffic. We're actually only exist for one reason. And the legislature set us up to any petition against an annexation if the annexation is not done correctly. That's the only reason that this body exists.
Well, then, I don't understand that. We all come over here to voice our opinion, and you people can't do nothing about it?
Not when it comes to traffic or zoning.
Anything, annexation.
If this was being proposed and it was incorrectly proposed, then we can act on it.
It don't make sense to me.
Thanks, Ron. The next is item number 5, Gary Jensen. Gary here?
I spoke for Gary.
Oh, that's right. Number 6, Jason and Carrie Knapp.
So I'm Jason Knapp. My wife Carrie's back there. We're probably one of the few here who do have standing. We own the parcel on the very top of the map. Ends in, hold on, what is the parcel number? 0046.
4.7 acres, that one?
Yes.
Okay.
It has another piece that goes down, but yes.
Right there.
So I guess I have a question maybe the lawyer could help me with understanding a little bit. I do understand your point on not controlling traffic and that a lot of the designations will need to be, or conversations will need to be had with Payson City. But on the, I'm reading the notice of public hearing that was provided to each of us. And there is one part in there that talks about any conflicts with the annexation policy plan of Payson City. And I'm wondering if you could help me to understand a little bit what that might mean and what an example of that would be. There is a concern that the plan of Payson City does talk about wanting to preserve some of the. Gene, help me with the wording. We quoted it in the annexate or the protest letters, but there's wanting to help. Well, and the agricultural, but also kind of the. Do you have our annexation letter there? Or I mean our protest letter?
Green space?
Yeah, so the green space, thank you, and recognizing the historic and cultural resources is an essential part of the community's heritage, and the general plan stresses the importance of that. So my question is whether there is any consideration of whether or not the Payson City's general plan about trying to help maintain green space, open space, and some of the historic and cultural resources of a community is something that should be considered by this body. And if it is something, if our understanding is correct, that's something that we think that should be considered, that this is encroaching into a historically important area that has a lot of cultural meaning to a lot of the people here, as you can hear in a lot of people's, how concerned people are. So do you have any thoughts or anything that could help shed any light on that for me?
I just want to say that's a great question. I'm going to turn time over to.
Sure. Rob Morgan, Utah County Attorney's Office. So an annexation policy plan is not necessarily the same as general plan. It can be included in a general plan, but it's not necessarily the same document. It could be separate documents. So an annexation policy plan is where a city wants to annex north, south, west, east, and what their intent is of annexing. And it could include what zoning they might anticipate if they wanted to annex north or south or wherever. It may not, but it could. We did receive a letter, the Boundary Commission did, from Payson City stating that this is consistent with their policy plan. There are representatives from Payson here that they could speak further to that. As to the general plan that Payson has, that discussion, I think, could be had with Payson City on whether this annexation makes sense in accordance with Payson's general plan. Mm-hmm. What the Boundary Commission is looking at is whether there's a conflict in their annexation policy plan, which again could be contained within the general plan, but may not necessarily be the same document. Does that help at all?
Yeah,
muddy
I
it for
would
you.
just ask that the commission consider that.
He referenced that document.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted you to have a copy of it.
Is this mine? Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, it would maybe be helpful to hear from Payson City. I see Jill back there and some others to hear their thoughts on that, and then just ask that the commission consider this issue carefully in your deliberations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is number 7. We have Brenda and Kelly Warner.
Mr. Chair, I noticed that, did you want to speak to that last one?
We can speak to it.
Payson City is here if you want to hear from them at this point, or if you want to wait.
Brenda, do you mind holding off just a minute?
Right ahead.
Okay. These are actually, I'm moving through this a little quick, sorry. These are actually action items, each one that we're naming out. So if Payson City would like to speak, we'll give time to Payson City.
My name is Jason Sant. I'm the city attorney for Payson City.
And I'm Jill Spencer, the city planner.
It does meet our annexation boundary policy. We have defined that as, I don't know how far into Spring Lake it goes.
It goes to the Highland Canal, to the south.
On the south. So it goes all the way down to the Highline Canal. And then on to the west, as many of them know, it goes out to and past the freeway. Santaquin City and we just determined the boundary on the south side that runs up against Santaquin as 11,400 or 12,400
On the west side of the freeway.
on the west side of the freeway, which doesn't have anything to do with this area in particular, but the boundary, our boundary policy does cover this in at least these 2 parcels, and it does cover quite a bit more. What Mr. Knapp was speaking to was the general plan. We believe it is consistent with the general plan. However, he can discuss that more with the city council when they go, if they get the chance to make that decision and when they go to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask them a question?
It's actually not a debate between entities. Sorry,
I
but
don't want to debate. I just want,
come on up to the microphone. You're doing good. You're doing good.
I couldn't even see the microphone. Okay.
Can you state your name once
Joy
again?
Benson.
Thank you.
I just want to know when Payson gets their things all put together, then everyone in so much area of that annexation will be notified and invited to the annexation meeting. And it won't just happen and then we'll wake up tomorrow and it's there. I just, yeah, I know it's going to happen sometime. I just want to know when it happens, and it just doesn't happen without any kind of input. So, but nobody takes a Payson Chronicle. Where else is it? Is it on the door at the city office? Where do I find this?
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Kim Hollandrake, the Payson City Recorder.
Okay.
So when the city council sets the public hearing to address the annexation, if that's where this is headed, we have to follow state law, which requires a certain radius. You will receive notification in the mail. Okay. It gets posted at the city office, the Utah State website, the Payson City website.
And the Payson Chronicle.
Yes, the Payson Chronicle, yeah.
And the newspaper. So all those places, and that's according to state law as well and city ordinance that we follow.
So
those
there will be a
requirements.
letter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Joy. We're going to move on to number 8.
Wait, we have
Oh, I'm,
Kelly Warner.
Brenda.
You might want to
This is
skip me,
Brenda.
but you're not going to. Brenda Warner. What about taxes? What will this subdivision, proposed subdivision, do to our county taxes?
I could summarize what's going to happen because you have a piece of property that's in the county. Once annexed in, they would, if they're paying money, and I don't know what they're paying right now, but if they're in service districts 6, 7, 8, or 9, which are special service districts, those would be dropped. They're still paying county taxes. What would be added would be the Payson City tax. But the special service districts for 6, 7, 8, and 9, which is, and I'm going to get this wrong, so watch. One is fire, one is police, one is zoning, and the last one is fire, wildfire. How close was I?
I think you're pretty close. It's special service areas and it might be structure fire.
Might be structure fire. But Payson City would then be responsible for those items. So the property owners would no longer be paying those special service districts. Does that make
Service
sense?
areas.
In the area that's annexed.
In the area that's annexed only, because, yeah, that's the only part that's going into Payson.
But that would
If
have no
it's
effect
approved, if it's
on-
approved,
on Ms. Warner's property.
right?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
even if she lived close though and still resided in the county, would that new subdivision affect their property value? Would it raise their property value, which would increase their property tax? Even though they stay in the county?
This proposed annexation is going to come right out on the Trout Farm Road. It's going to, everybody in yellow, clear up that swath, is going to be affected. Even though we still are in yellow, we're going to get
You will be-
property tax increases, road tax, because the road is not, and I know that's not you, but it's a barely a 2-lane road. It's going to have to be widened,
I'm,
striped,
I
lined.
believe, yeah, I believe it's still going to be a county road. Is that correct?
So that is going to be our taxes.
That I don't know if it's, I
Yeah, the
anticipate
county
it
doesn't
should be.
charge, I mean, the county doesn't raise taxes for the roads typically, so it's, if the county determines to raise that road, that they could do that. But,
There's currently funds for the road now. Exactly how that's being allocated, I couldn't tell you. But there are B, C, D money for roads.
B money.
B money?
Yeah,
Okay.
C money is for cities.
Sorry. B money. I'm not a commissioner, sorry.
Okay, just trying to understand. So those of us who are there and are lifers are going to reap the increases of this subdivision, which we have no say in.
That's a possibility, yes.
Okay, was my only question. We'll address the rest with the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for skipping you a second time. Number 8 is Chance and Mandy Carter. No? Okay.
And
All
just
right.
for the record, Mr. Chair, this is
Oh,
Rob
I'm sorry.
Moore.
Yeah.
On that one, we received notification from Payson City that they received their protest on October 4th, 2021. The deadline for filing a protest was October 2nd, 2021. So that protest was actually 2 days late. It is on your agenda today, but just be aware that that protest was 2 days late. Same with number 9.
Do we need to take action on that, or is it just noted?
I think you're going to note that, and as you make your decision, you would look at that.
Okay, all right.
Number 9 is the same.
Number 9 is with Mark and Nicole Davis.
Yes, that was also received on October 4th.
Are they, I'm sorry, are they here? No, we're part of the same? Okay, all right. Well, that is all the names we had associated on the protest, but I'd like to now open it up to public comment if anyone in the audience would like to speak to it. Please come up.
I'm Mark Marvin. I know Robert. I've had dealings with him before, so he knows me. The thing that really I think that everyone needs to understand is the age of Spring Lake as a community. They've never incorporated because the people in the community want to not be incorporated so that people can't change their lives, but the county does anyway. So, and we understand that, but if you know Spring Lake, it's as old as Payson, maybe older. The community has been there for generations, and the people like a rural community. A lot of people have horses, cows, goats, and the closer the city gets, the quicker those will be not welcome. And so that's really the plea, is this is a change of lifestyle if it keeps coming. Now, you're saying the blue, but it's really green there, isn't it?
It's green, yes.
And that little strip to the side, that's not called creating a peninsula or something, or? Because to me, it doesn't look like
the yellow and the green makeup are both in the county. That's why it looks the way it is. So that yellow, that's in the county, but also the green is in the county.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's why it doesn't create a peninsula, is because those two together would nullify the peninsula.
But if they annex it, then it would be.
I understand what you're saying, but it's not based on just the color, because the county is both yellow and green on that map. And so it only has to consider the county part. So it's not creating a peninsula only in the fact that there's more, the 4.7 acres, I'm sorry, was it Greg?
Yeah.
That's your property.
Yeah.
Greg, Jason, I wasn't even close, was I?
They're brothers. Same family. Don't worry.
Greg's brother. That property is also in the county. And because that piece is also there, it doesn't create the peninsula that we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. I just said it was present, that's all.
But if that's annexed in, then that's Payson and the rest of it all around is county. How's that not?
That's where I...
I understand the question. And we had the same question we asked the county surveyor, does this create a peninsula? And the response we got back was it does not create a peninsula.
If we were the ocean and that was land, that would be a peninsula.
Mr. Chair, isn't that dark green to the north,
This is
Payson City?
Yeah, yes.
So it's connecting to Payson City.
Contiguous to the dark green is.
Dark green is Payson City.
Up on the top.
I know it, but Florida is a peninsula and they're connected to the U.S. and we still call them a peninsula because they're out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, I had the county surveyor check to by definition, is this technically a peninsula? It's very close, but it is not. So
Now you have me smiling.
I know. Well, the reason you're asking the question is the same reason I asked the question, because I asked the question of the county surveyor, just to be clear.
Yeah.
It's very close, but technically it doesn't meet the criteria.
Mr. Chair,
Right.
Rob Moore, County Attorney's Office again. So an unincorporated peninsula is a defined term and by state law. And so what we do is we have every annexation that comes in is reviewed by the county surveyor's office to determine whether it creates an unincorporated peninsula. And as I said, it's defined by 10-2-401 1L of the state code, and that actually has a mathematical formula in it, what an unincorporated peninsula is. And so they use that formula to determine whether this is leaves an unincorporated peninsula. So we're not talking about the green or blue that you keep referring to up there, because that's incorporated peninsula. We're talking about what's left, not what's created, what's left.
Okay.
Unincorporated peninsula. That's what the state law looks at, not at the incorporated peninsula, not the Florida part you're talking about, but the rest around Florida, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. That's what state law looks at.
So the only one that comes close to a peninsula then is the little yellow strip that goes up in.
And it's not tied to one piece of property, it's tied to all of the county.
This one.
So it's not property specific, like you're referencing here. It's all of the county around it. So, and that's by state law, and that is defined. And so what happens is the county surveyor's office takes a look at it, reviews the definition of unincorporated peninsula, and makes a determination based on that definition whether it's an unincorporated peninsula or not.
Okay.
And in this case, they've determined that it is not an unincorporated peninsula.
But it was close.
I didn't know that, but that's what.
You know, that was my fault.
Okay, and I'm all right with that.
Because Robert Moore is correct. It's based on the perspective. So if you're looking at the Florida part, which would be going into Payson, it does look that way. But the statute says you have to look at the county side.
Yeah.
From the county side, it does not.
Yeah, it's an inverse
Right.
of what I'm thinking.
Yes. I did the same thing. I'm sorry, Mr. Marvin.
Oh, that's all right. I'm mathematically minded, and that's inverses. I understand that. So it's not a problem that way. The thing that really affects me is Spring Lake is as old as Payson and probably older as a community. Because I grew up in Payson.
They've both been around for a long time. Yeah.
They were about the same time. They were, the people were the same. But I hope that governmental entities everywhere in this state will understand that and not just swallow Spring Lake up because it's money. Let's not do it just for money. If it makes sense, then it's a good thing. But really, if you do it for money, then these people, I mean, they're generations there. And we have a monument on our field. And so anyway, that's a plead, and that's all that is.
Thank you.
City actually had this on the other side of the Highline Canal recently.
We're still open for any public comment that would like to be made.
Joy's shaking
Come
her
on
head.
up. Come on.
I know all the cities have master plans somewhere to where Lake Shore is. If it wants to take Lake Shore eventually, maybe 100 years from now.
I'm Terrell Moore. I was born and raised in Spring Lake, and I've been there all my life. It's a good community. But Payson City is coming closer. They want to annex, and they're coming closer and closer. They want to take over Spring Lake because they want to take Spring Lake's water away. Now, as the question arises every which way, when they build all these big retarded houses that they're building nowadays, one of these days the water's going to run out. And then what are they going to do? The only thing I don't like about it is it's Spring Lake. The lake is called, it belongs to Payson City. And that is the worst place you ever want to live. They've got a road around the lake, and all they do is, it's a racetrack for all these teenagers on these motorcycles and four-wheelers to run around the lake. And one of these days, somebody's going to get hurt, but if it's Payson's Lake, can't Payson City come out and patrol it and control it and see what's going on? Because, I own 3.5 acres there, and that's why we want the one at least an acre. Because I don't want one of these big ugly houses right next to my place, you know. And and I think that's the way it ought to be, and they ought to leave it in the county to do what they want. But the county commissioners, that's up to them, and they don't quite understand, I don't think, what's going on. But it's a good place, and I've been there. And but I know Payson, every time you turn around, doop, 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 they're a little closer and a little closer and a little closer to annex. And we in Spring Lake, we don't want that. We want to be left alone, because we've been there for so many years.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment unless there's anyone else that'd like to speak.
We can do that by motion.
I think you're right.
Please.
I need a motion to close public comment.
Make a motion to close public comment.
I'll second it.
Do you get both those? There's been a motion and a second to close public comment.
Second.
Paul said that. All in favor, say aye.
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 And so it's unanimous, and public comment is now closed. Do you want to direct the board now on the options to proceed?
Sure. So you can certainly deliberate at this point if you wanted to. You could deliberate here in front of everyone. You could deliberate in private if you wanted to. You could, your decision, if you make it tonight, well, you can continue the hearing and come back. You have to do that within 60 days. And you can continue multiple times as long as you put the maximum amount of time that you can continue this is for 60 days total between all the continuances. So you can do that. You can approve the annexation with or without conditions. You can make minor modifications to the annexation and approve it with or without conditions, or you can disapprove the annexation. Under any of those scenarios, I would strongly recommend that we prepare findings of fact, conclusions of law, and an order in this, like we've done in the past, supporting the decision that you make here tonight or subsequent to tonight. That decision can then, as I mentioned before, can be appealed to the 4th District Court within 20 days of issuance of that written decision. And the 4th District Court will then review your decision based upon the record here tonight and the record before you. They will not have a new hearing. They will just review the existing decision that's made and determine whether it's arbitrary, capricious, or illegal.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'm going to bring it back up to the body.
I've got a question for council.
You can also ask me questions.
Does this annexation petition meet the requirements for the 4 things that we have to rule on?
Well, that's a great question, and that honestly is a question that you have to determine. I know it would be easy to say, look to the attorney and have the attorney try to make that determination for you, but that's not, I'm not a member of the board. I will say to you that you've heard information about those things tonight. You have some information in your packet related to those things. A reminder of what those 4 things are is it contiguous, meaning the annexation is contiguous to each other? Is it contiguous to the city? And you can look at the map that you've seen and make that kind of determination. Is it comply with the requirements of Utah Code 10-2-402? And that is, like I said, those things. Plus, it includes, does it leave or create an unincorporated island or unincorporated peninsula? And we had some discussion about that. And so you can make a determination on that. And finally, is it within the annexation municipalities annexation policy plan? And I think you've heard from the city on that issue as well, and you can make a determination on that one. In addition to that, is it in accordance with 10-2-403 of the Utah Code? That is the due process issues. You haven't heard, I don't know if you've heard anything complaining about that during the public hearing. I think Payson has certified that they've done that. That's part of your packet. You received some information on that. And so those are some of the things that you'll be looking at tonight. I can't really make your decision for you. I can help support your decision, but I'm not here to make the decision for you. But those are the things that you want to look at.
I wasn't asking you to make the decision.
I understand, but I would recommend that when you do make your decision, and if you decide to do a motion tonight, that is part of your motion. If you decide to do it this way, that you direct me, my office, to prepare appropriate findings and conclusions, and an order that supports your decision that's made.
Is there any other discussion? Jim, I know you're remote. Do you have any other questions that you'd like to ask?
I don't. The packet was thorough and the conversation's been great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we are ready for a motion then. Unless there's additional discussion.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that we approve this annexation petition on the grounds that it does meet the 4 criteria as set out in statute, and that we instruct the attorney's office to create findings and conclusions as appropriate based on the fact that it does meet the criteria as set by the state legislature.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 So it passes unanimously. That brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So made.
I move that we adjourn.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.